Hey Central Baptist, welcome to church this morning. We're so glad that you could join us online. We hope that you are staying safe and that your family is well. Hey, just a couple of notices before we get into the service this morning. First of all, you might have already received an email just outlining our plan for the next 6 to 8 weeks here at church. We're looking for some online hosts, so if you would like to host some people from our church to view our online service over the holiday break, we'd urge you to contact the church office, contact Candace and let her know if that's something that you would like to do. That'd be awesome. Also, just like to let you know that we're having a Christmas Day service this year, 9:30 a.m. It's an open service, so all are welcome, please. Just remember there's a cap, a 50 person cap on that, so bookings will be essential. So just check out our Facebook page or our website to lock your spot in for our Christmas Day service this year. Now, just probably a bit of a warning, I guess, for our online service this morning. It may feel a little bit weird. This morning's our Celebrate service at church, and every year we invite people from our church to tell us their stories of what God's done, God's goodness, God's grace to them over the course of this year. So there's really no sermon so much this morning. Mostly we get people to from our church congregation to do the message on Celebrate Sunday. So just to give you a heads up more than anything else, that Keith has prepared a very short message for this online service, but in reality we're going to be hearing from people from around our church and God about God's goodness. Hey, we just want to say a big thank you for joining us. We love that you're able to do it in this way, and we hope that you stay blessed and stay well. Welcome to church this morning at Central Baptist. Kia ora.
What's one thing on your bucket list? Going to Disneyland and going back to Singapore. What is your favourite family tradition? Singing old songs and travelling the world. What is the best advice you have received? Being positive and being yourself. Other than Jesus, which famous person in history would you like to spend a day with? Stephen Edward, the crocodile hunter. What do you love about Jesus? He died for us, he loves one another, and you can trust him.
Hey, it's great to have you tuning in this morning. Sorry you can't be there in person because this is a great Sunday, Celebrate Sunday, or our celebration service at the end of the year where people to share something of how they've experienced the goodness of God. And we're not able to put that online at the moment. Next year we hope to be live streaming our services, but this is pre-recorded. I actually said to the church congregation last week, I'm hoping I don't need a sermon, that you are the sermon. And I trust if you're listening online that you'll take some time to reflect on how you've experienced God's goodness this year. After the testimonies that are going to be shared, and I'm hoping it fills up the entire sermon slot, we're going to just go into a time of worship where we just worship a great God, an amazing God. But I have prepared a little something just in case the testimonies don't fill in all the time, and it's really just a reflection on this amazing God that we worship. I don't know if you've ever noticed that kids can ask you questions about God that stump you. How come a 5-year-old can ask a question about God that's really hard to answer? It's really annoying, especially when it was my kids and it was meant to be my job. I'm the minister, and I couldn't answer some of their questions about God because it's really hard to describe God. If someone walked up to you and asked you to explain what God is like, you'd probably list a whole lot of things about God that are true. He's good, he's powerful, he's holy, but it doesn't really give you a true picture of God. See, the thing is that God is indescribable. Isaiah 40 verse 18 says, "To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness compares him?" To whom then will you liken God, or what likeness compare him? See, if we want to explain something unknown, we do it by comparing it to something known. That's how we do it. If you had to describe lamb and what lamb tasted like to a person, and this person had never tasted lamb before, what would you say? Well, it tastes a bit like chicken, but it's a bit richer. Or it's a bit like beef, but a bit milder. That's how we explain things. We find something we know and we compare and contrast it. Now that gets more difficult if we're trying to explain something that's very different from anything we've ever known. Last Sunday I tried explaining what 1 light year was. And I said, well, it's like if you went around the Earth 26 million times. Because it's so vast, it's really hard to get anything to compare it to. But we can sort of grasp the idea of travelling around the world. And 26 million, well, it's not really comprehensible, but it's more manageable than 10 to the power of 9 or something. I mean, I know some of you went to sleep in maths class and you're not even sure what 10 to the power of 9 is. So it's just a way to try and describe what 1 light year is. It's a bit like that when we come to God. There is nothing you can compare God to. He's larger than the highest mountain, but well, it's not really much of a comparison. It sort of fails, really, because he's so much bigger. He's brighter than the sun, but well, that doesn't really help understand him either. We can take the most amazing bits of creation, but it still limits God. The Bible uses multiple images to try and describe God. It describes God like a lion, a lamb, an eagle, a leopard, a bear, an ox, a dove. And all of those give us glimpses of one part of God's character. Sometimes we say a great sportsman is incomparable. Don Bradman, incomparable cricketer. But it's not really true to say he's incomparable. He's like, I don't know, Sachin Tendulkar, but just better. Or his average was just better. But when we try to compare God to anyone or anything, it's impossible. The Israelites would have been very tempted to think that God was like the other nations' gods, because all the other nations had gods, only sort of like better. And Isaiah is saying, no, you can't use idols of other gods as a comparison. That's a hopeless comparison. He says, to whom can you compare God? What image can you find to resemble him? Can he be compared to an idol formed in a mold, overlaid with gold and decorated with silver chains? He says, are you deaf to the words of God, the words he gave before the world began? Are you so ignorant? God sits above the circle of the earth. The people below him seem like grasshoppers to him. Again, a comparison. He spreads out the heavens like a curtain and makes his tent from them. He judges the great people of the world and brings them all to nothing. They hardly get started, barely taking root, when he blows on them and they wither. The wind carries them off like chaff. To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal? Ask the Holy One. Look up into the heavens. Who created all the stars? God is literally incomparable. And yet the funny thing is that the Bible says that we can also know God. So on one hand, the Bible says that God is incomparable to anything or anyone. He's beyond our knowledge. Yet the Bible also teaches we can know God. So how can that be? It seems like a contradiction. If you think about a fact like, I don't know, 5 plus 5 equals 10. We can know everything about that fact. It's fairly simple. But we can never know everything about a person. You can be married to your spouse for 30 years and know a lot about them, but you never fully really know everything about a person. You know, the old saying, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Most men would say that even after 30 years, they still don't really understand women. Most women are nodding their heads saying, yeah, no, he doesn't. We can know someone, but people are complex, really complex. So we can never really fully know someone. And God's far more complex than a person. And so it's impossible to fully know him. But of course, that doesn't mean we can't know him at all, we don't say that about people. We say, well, I'm never going to fully understand that person, so I'm not going to bother to know them at all. No, we still want to get to know people. You go back to space, or in fact any really complex subject, the human body. So the person who studies space is very aware of how vast space is and how much they don't know. You know, they're still figuring out stuff about what black holes are, which I don't understand at all. The more they study, the more they know, and the more they realise how much they don't know. Doctors studied the human body, but you talk to a doctor, they're very aware there's still a huge amount that we don't understand about how the body works. The Bible teaches that God has revealed himself to us. And without that, we'd be stuck. Romans says that God has revealed himself through creation. The earth and the heavens reflect something of the glory of God. That's why for those who, even those who don't believe, find the beauty of creation to be a spiritual experience. And actually it is. It's a spiritual experience because it is God revealing himself. There's something profound in that. So it gives us something of God. Jesus said in Matthew 11:27, no one knows the Father except no one knows the Son, except the Father. And no one knows the Father except the Son. And to anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. No one knows the Son except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son. I.e., God is incomprehensible to us humans. And yet it says also, to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Jesus reveals the Father. The only way we can truly know God is through Jesus. God chose to live with us because that gives us something we can relate to. We have something in common. If we did not have Jesus becoming a human, becoming incarnate, we might get a distorted picture of what God is like. Creation reveals something of what God is like, but it's not complete. Without revelation, we would make God to be like ourselves. That's what the Greeks did. They made up stories about the gods, and the gods fight and have sex and all kinds of stuff. Human stuff, as it were. But God is incomparable, and we can never fully understand him, and yet he's knowable because God has revealed himself to us in Jesus. We've been listening to testimonies this morning that give a glimpse of God, and you'll have your own testimony of how you've seen the goodness of God, how you've seen glimpses of God this year. We read the Bible and we see how God has revealed himself throughout history. But this Christmas we celebrate that we have Jesus, God's revelation of himself. God has revealed himself in a way that we can understand. In a sense, that's Christmas in a nutshell. Hopefully it will lead us to worship this God who's both incomprehensible and yet has made himself known. It will lead us to a place of awe and to a place of worship. I encourage you this morning to reflect on God as incomprehensibly great and wonderful, and yet also knowable. And I trust that will lead you just to a time of thanksgiving and worship. Worship him as the God who has made himself known. May God bless you.